In 2015, a retired FBI agent gave an interview about his years working Las Vegas in the 1970s, and he said something that nobody watching Casino could have guessed. He had two informants inside the same marriage. Frank Rosenthal, the man Robert De Niro plays in the film, was talking to the FBI. That much came out after his death, and it is remarkable enough on its own. The man who ran the Stardust for the Chicago outfit was passing information to the federal government. But so was his wife. Jerry Rosenthal was talking to the same agency, and according to that agent, there were nights when he met with the husband and then met separately with the wife. Neither of them knew about the other. Now hold that against what the film shows you. Casino gives you a marriage destroyed by drink, drugs, jealousy, and an affair. Two people screaming at each other in a beautiful house while the money and the town collapse around them. What it does not show you is that while all of that was happening, both of them were quietly sitting down with federal agents. That is the first thing Casino never showed. It is not the worst thing. The worst thing is what he did to keep her. This is what really happened inside the marriage at the center of Casino. Start with her, because the film gets her origins broadly right, and almost nobody knows the actual numbers. Geraldine McGee was born in Los Angeles in May of 1936. Her parents married in 1931 and later divorced. She grew up in a working-class family in post-Depression California, by one account, close to the poorest family in her town. She was extremely beautiful, and she understood early exactly what that was worth. She began modeling in high school. Around 1960, she moved to Las Vegas and started working as a cocktail waitress, and then as a showgirl at the Tropicana. And here is the part the film compresses into a single scene with a pile of casino chips. Her salary as a showgirl was around $20,000 a year, which was genuinely good money in 1960s Las Vegas. Her actual income was reportedly in the hundreds of thousands. The difference came from what everyone in that town called hustling, cultivating high rollers, being pleasant company to men who were winning, and being tipped in chips, jewelry, and cash. It was not prostitution, and she was not a girlfriend for hire. It was closer to a profession. She was extraordinarily good at being the woman a wealthy gambler wanted at his table, and she converted that into an income most executives in the city could not match. By the late 1960s, Jerry McGee was one of the most financially successful women in Las Vegas without ever having held what anyone would call a job. She was also, in the film's telling and in reality, permanently attached to a man from her past. Lenny Marmer was her childhood sweetheart. She had a daughter with him, Robin, and she never entirely let him go. He came in and out of her life for the whole of her marriage, exactly as the film shows. That is the woman Frank Rosenthal married on the 4th of May, 1969. He was a professional handicapper, one of the best sports bettors in America, who had come out of Chicago and been installed in Las Vegas to run casinos for the outfit without ever holding a gaming license. And he was clear-eyed about what the arrangement was. Years later, he said it plainly. Jerry was in love with money. He had money. He gave her security. They had 2 children together, Stephen and Stephanie, and Robin came with her. For a period, it worked in the way arrangements like that work. He controlled the Stardust and several other properties. She had the house, the jewelry, and a position in Las Vegas society. And there is something the film never bothers to say. She was reportedly a devoted mother, which sits uncomfortably against everything else in this story and is worth saying out loud. Then it began coming apart, and the reasons were the ordinary ones. There were infidelities on both sides. She accused him of affairs. He accused her of drinking too much and taking too many pills. And by every account, he was right about that. alcohol, prescription drugs, and eventually cocaine. There were physical altercations between them, and Frank Rosenthal did what a man with money and connections does when he stops trusting his wife. He hired private detectives to follow her. Now here is the thing the film leaves out, and it is the ugliest fact in this story. When the marriage was already failing, Rosenthal threatened to divorce her unless she had a second child with him. Read that again, because of what it actually is. Not a request, not a reconciliation, a condition. She was financially dependent on him, drinking heavily, being followed by investigators he had hired. And he made her continued security conditional on producing another baby. She did it. And by the accounts that survive, it made her considerably worse. There is a version of this marriage where two glamorous, damaged people destroy each other more or less equally. And the film leans that way. That single fact tilts it. Whatever else she did, and she did a great deal, she was a woman with an addiction being coerced into a pregnancy by a man who had detectives watching her. Which brings us to Tony Spilotro. The film gives you this as the fatal turn, and that is accurate. Anthony Spilotro was the Chicago outfits man in Las Vegas, Rosenthal's lifelong friend, and the enforcer whose reputation kept everybody in line. Jerry had an affair with him, not a hidden one, in the end. It became highly public, and it went on for months. And when she admitted it, Rosenthal flew into a rage, and when it continued anyway, he began dividing up their property and filed for divorce. Understand the position that created. He had not simply lost his wife, he had made an enemy of the single most dangerous man in Las Vegas, the man the Chicago bosses had sent specifically to handle problems, and who was not remotely squeamish about how. After 13 months of open warfare between them, public scenes, threats to expose one another, and steadily increasing attention from journalists and law enforcement, the divorce was finalized on the 16th of January, 1981. And Jerry took the money. Not metaphorically. She left with her jewelry collection and a substantial portion of his cash and moved back to California. Then, over the following 22 months, everything ended. On the 4th of October, 1982, Frank Rosenthal finished dinner at Tony Roma's on East Sahara Avenue in Las Vegas. He was taking food home to his children. He got into his 1981 Cadillac Eldorado and turned the key. The car exploded. He was blown out of the vehicle and survived, which is, by any engineering assessment, extraordinary. It is one of the most famous images in Las Vegas history, and Scorsese put it in the film almost exactly as it happened. Nobody was ever convicted of it. 36 days later, on the 9th of November, 1982, Jerry collapsed in the lobby of a motel in Los Angeles. She was 46 years old. Her legs were covered in bruises. She was pronounced dead. The Los Angeles County coroner determined the cause as an accidental overdose, a combination of cocaine, Valium, and whiskey, with no evidence of homicide, and the bruising consistent with a fall before she collapsed. And then, Frank Rosenthal did something that tells you more about the man than anything else in this story. He paid $50,000 for a private autopsy, because within days of her death, people were saying he had killed her. His car had been bombed 5 weeks earlier. His ex-wife, who had taken his money and slept with Tony Spilotro, was dead in a motel. The arithmetic was obvious to everyone in Las Vegas. So he commissioned an independent examination at his own expense, specifically to refute it. It reached the same conclusion as the coroner, the same lethal combination. No foul play, no forced ingestion. That is what the end of this marriage actually looked like. A man who had survived a car bomb spending $50,000 to prove he had not murdered the woman who left him. The rest of it went the way you would expect. Tony Spilotro was summoned back to Chicago. In 1986, he and his brother Michael were killed and buried in an Indiana cornfield, which the film shows, and which is one of the few things Casino makes less horrifying than the reality. Frank Rosenthal left Las Vegas in 1983. He went to California, then to Florida, where he ran a sports handicapping operation for the rest of his life. He died of a heart attack in Miami Beach on the 13th of October, 2008. He was 79 years old. Jerry is buried at Mount Sinai Memorial Park in Los Angeles. And now go back to the beginning, because the informant revelation changes how you read all of it. Frank Rosenthal's cooperation with the FBI became publicly known only after his death. Jerry's involvement was disclosed by a retired agent in 2015, 33 years after she died. So during the years when this marriage was disintegrating, amid the detectives, the affair, the screaming, and the threats to expose one another, both of them were separately talking to federal agents, and by that agent's account, neither knew. Think about what that means for the scenes the film does show. Every accusation of disloyalty in that house was being made by someone who was themselves informing. Every threat one of them made to spill what they knew was being made by a person who was already spilling it to the government in private. Casino presents them as two people who could not trust each other. They were both right. So, was the marriage worse in real life? The film gets the shape of it correct, and it is honest about the drugs and the violence and the affair in a way most films would not be. What it leaves out is the coercion. Rosenthal threatening divorce unless she produced another child is not in the picture. And it is the single fact that most changes how you see him. It leaves out how good she was at what she did before she met him. A woman making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in 1960s Las Vegas on her own account, who then traded that independence for security and never got it back. It leaves out the $50,000 he spent to prove he had not killed her, and it leaves out the fact that the two people at the center of it were both, quietly, working with the FBI. The film ends with Ace saying that the town will never be the same, and that in the end, they got it all wrong. It is a line about Las Vegas, but the marriage at the center of it was the same story in miniature. Two people who had each found a way to make an enormous amount of money out of a city built on the assumption that nobody was watching. Both of them were being watched. Both of them were doing the watching. And within 22 months of the divorce, one of them was blown out of a Cadillac on East Sahara Avenue, and the other was dead on a motel floor in Los Angeles at 46.